Hey guys, it's Jen. This is another episode of Reframing Me. Happy fall! Per the calendar, we are official. And thanks to a tropical storm, at least here in Wilmington, it is cool and gloomy and kind of rainy. So it actually even feels like fall. Although I have lived here long enough to know that this is actually what's called false fall because it will be hot and sweaty again shortly. This is when I usually get sucked into buying my pumpkins and mums and then only to have them cooked on my porch when the temperature shoots back up. So I am not doing it. I am not biting this year. I'm going to wait it out just a bit. In honor of this week's Autumnal Equinox, this is part 3 of a 3-part series to honor this turning point in nature and to really use it as an opportunity to look at how it impacts us. Because we are connected to the earth and to the universe and to nature. And we would be completely remiss if we didn't acknowledge that. Of course, just like everything else around us, we are all impacted by the change of season. Maybe it's physical, like drier skin or allergies, or you're feeling more tired or hungry. Or maybe your exhaustion is mental, or your mood is gloomy. Or maybe you're feeling more energetic now that the heat is gone or going. Maybe it's spiritual. Just like the change in temperature impacts us, so do the forces of energy. So let's use this opportunity to look inward at both ourselves and at our families, to look in and reflect. So in part 1, I asked you to have gratitude for your growth over the summer season. And then in part 2, we looked at the balance in our lives and in the various roles that we play. And now it's time to let go. Today, we're going to have a conversation about what we need to let go of as we move into this new season. What can we let go of both individually and in our families? And we're also going to talk about some things that I think many of us and many of our families can let go of by expanding our conversation to include a bit about imposter syndrome and communication patterns. Now, because this is an audio format and not video, and I know I should do video too, and I will at some point, I promise, but I just know me, and I know that if I have a camera on me, things totally change. I don't know why, but I am very video averse. I had to make an intro video for work the other day, and oh my God, you'd swear I was being tortured. I was the last one of all of us to finally give in and make the video, and I was super stressed about it. And anyway, I don't know why, but we're audio, not video. So I have to tell you that I am super lucky to have a beautiful yard to look at full of trees, from palm trees to pine trees. I have magnolia trees and crepe myrtles, and then others that, well, I only know that they're trees. I mean, I'm not an arborist. That's all I've got. But looking out my office window, I see the crepe myrtles that are luscious and beautiful. The gorgeous greens with the pink and the white flowers. And it's amazing to me, though, those trees, how they grow, because every year I have the same debate with my husband. It comes like late fall, I'd guess. Do you absolutely need to cut them back? Because they're so ugly when he cuts them back. And I'm always convinced that they will never grow back and be beautiful again. And the same thing with all of my hydrangeas. Yes, the flowers are all dead, but do you have to cut the branches back all stubby like that? Because they just look so sad and pathetic. But then they do grow back, and they grow back bigger and better. They're more lush every year. And so, as much as it pains me to admit it, I know that to keep coming back bigger and better and more beautiful each year, yes, they do need to be cut back. I just really hate it. And then I look at all of the trees. In the South, we're a bit behind y'all up north, and I know that your leaves are turning beautiful already, and ours will be soon. Today, though, they're still green, but pretty soon, all of those leaves will start to turn colors, and they'll somehow become even more beautiful than they are right now. And then they'll start to fall off. And just like the ones that we actually cut back, the trees will all look so bare and icky and sad. But that's the process that they need to go through. It's necessary to let go of these leaves or flowers or branches in order for the new life to grow in the spring, so that they can come back bigger and better and more beautiful than they even are now. And just like the trees need to shed their leaves as the seasons turn, it's true for us too. For our souls and our lives and our relationships and our families to grow, it's our old patterns and our behaviors that we need to shed. We need to let go of what no longer serves us. So first, let's simply look inward. Simple, right? Well, simple, but definitely not easy. Last week, we talked a lot about building good habits. I guess here we could start with breaking some old ones. What habits and behaviors do you need to let go of? In order for you to continue to grow new life, what do you need to let go of? Are there thoughts or narratives in your head that are holding you back? To be completely honest, I have definitely had some new narratives in my head. And I guess feeling like it isn't new, but since back to school this year, I've found it to somehow be extra loud in my head. Imposter syndrome. Have you dealt with this? I do think a lot of us have in various aspects of our lives. But for some reason, I've really been feeling it professionally lately. I've been thinking about it because, at first I just thought it was more of I need to get back into the groove of things after summer break kind of thing. But I will tell you, Stella is struggling to get her groove back here. I find myself doubting myself in the classroom. Well, I mean, the virtual classroom, that is. But I've been doubting myself. This is my 24th year teaching. That's a long time. In fact, oh my God, I just realized, okay, so most students, I guess, are 23-ish when they graduate. So that means that they weren't even born yet when I started teaching. Oh my God. I'm sorry. I'm going to need a minute to process that. So I'm the typical senior in college was not even born when I started teaching. Wow. I mean, I guess, yes, that tracks 100%. And no, I shouldn't be surprised by this information at all. But wow, I don't know why it's so shocking when I think of it that way. Anyway, how did I get here? Yes, 24th year. It is my 24th damn year doing this. I know what I'm doing. I haven't just been stagnant all of these years either. I'm always growing and evolving in my career. So why do I feel so much doubt right now? Why do I feel so out of place? Why do I find myself questioning if I'm doing things okay? Are they thinking that I'm the worst professor in the program? Do they think, she doesn't even have a clue what she's doing here? Why do I find myself questioning if I'm doing a good job? Do they like me? Do they think my class is beneficial? And a bazillion other similar questions. But the questions, they don't track. It doesn't even make sense why I'd ask any of these questions. Of course, I know I'm qualified. I know that I'm good at my job. I know that my classes are good and that they're beneficial, and I have not seen or heard anything to tell me otherwise on any of these points. And yet, for some reason, the questions are still there. The doubt is still there. And I would love to say it's better for me on the podcasting side of my career. But the questions and the narratives are there just as much. And to be honest, they're probably even more so. I see my numbers, the metrics, they're going up. I have friends reach out to me and thank me. They tell me how helpful our conversations are to them. So I know that y'all like it. And I know that y'all enjoy listening. But I still doubt. I still question. Am I good enough? Am I liked enough? Am I knowledgeable enough? Am I entertaining enough? Am I enough? So for me, right now in time, as I reflect, I'd say it's imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome is when you just can't shake those persistent feelings of self-doubt or inadequacy in some area of life. Often, but not always, of course, but often it is professionally speaking. But many of you have also experienced it in your relationships, which is totally normal too. As a mother, in your social circle, in your friendships, really anywhere. You question if you belong. You have a fear of being exposed as a fraud. I mean, just like I rationally explain to myself often, but you may have these doubts 100% despite evidence of your competence, of your accomplishments. You look around the table, whether it's in a board meeting or at a dinner party table, and you think, I don't belong here. I don't deserve to be here. What if they all can see that? Or it's only a matter of time before they realize that I'm a fraud. Obviously, this is all completely false. It is untrue. We are qualified. We are capable. We do belong, and we are absolutely not a fraud. So why? Why do we feel like we are? What causes imposter syndrome? Well, the biggest cause? Perfectionism. Yep. Those crazy perfectionists, right? Those crazy perfectionist people out there who set those excessively high standards for themselves. Well, they often experience imposter syndrome. Apparently, we believe, yes, we believe that any mistake we make or any failure that we have just proves our incompetence. And so we feel like a fraud. Yep, I feel that one in my soul. But for other people, it's their early experiences of being criticized or constantly being compared to others that can contribute to their imposter syndrome. And some people attribute their successes to external factors like to luck or just good timing instead of acknowledging their own skills and abilities that got them there. So those of us with imposter syndrome, we have self-doubt. We constantly question our abilities and we fear being exposed as a fraud. Sometimes even this self-doubt can hinder our performance and our personal growth. We feel anxiety and stress because that fear of failure and fear of being discovered as an imposter, well, surprise, it can lead to heightened anxiety and to chronic stress. Shocking, I know. And we all realize that this can totally negatively impact our mental well-being and our overall quality of life. And when these frauds, these imposters, often when they do succeed, they undersell their own successes because their self-doubt prevents them from fully embracing and fully celebrating their achievements. They may even downplay their successes and even attribute them to luck or to external factors rather than just acknowledging that it was because of their own capabilities. So for me, right now, At this time, as I move into fall and reflect on what leaves I need to shed in order to grow, I need to let go of my feelings of imposter syndrome. And maybe you do too. And if so, we can do it together. First, we need to recognize that these feelings are totally normal. They do absolutely not reflect our true abilities. Second, we need to replace the self-critical thoughts that we have with positive affirmations. Affirmations that reflect on our past accomplishments and our own strengths, whether it's through personal reflection or through talking with others. We can hopefully start to have a more realistic view of our abilities because we are totally capable and totally qualified. Third, we need to take things down a notch. Avoid setting those excessively high standards for ourselves. We know we do it, right? And fourth, like everything else, we just need to grant ourselves some grace, treat ourselves with kindness and compassion. So, as you look at yourself, what do you need to shed about yourself in order for your soul to grow? Now, how about your family? In part 2, we talked about our roles. We said that our roles are influenced by our characteristics, but then our roles are reinforced by our family's interactions. Every interaction is influenced by the previous interactions and then influences our future interactions. Over time, sometimes our families develop problematic communication patterns that can do things like keep us from understanding each other and ultimately can lead to conflict. So, can you look at your family and see any communication patterns that you could shed that would allow your relationships to grow? Really, there are a lot of them out there to choose from. 7 to be specific. So chances are most of us could probably shed at least one, if not more, probably. The most common communication pattern that families can suffer with, surprise, we've already covered it: poor listening. Remember, we talked about how to be a better listener in the It's Not About the Socks episode? A huge issue is the lack of active listening within families. People may interrupt or ignore or fail to empathize with each other's perspectives. And this pattern, it prevents meaningful dialogue and understanding. Now, if we want to shed this pattern, we need to practice active listening. We need to give each other our undivided attention and to validate each other's feelings and our experiences. A second pattern that we can face is being overly critical and overly defensive. And this can create a hostile environment within families. If you're constantly belittling each other or attacking each other's ideas or actions, it can affect trust and our open communication. Now, if we'd like to shed this pattern, we need to create a culture of constructive feedback rather than criticism. Remember that? The difference between feedback and criticism? We talked about that one in the socks episode too. A third pattern that we often face in relationships is stonewalling and withdrawal. The stonewalling happens when someone emotionally shuts down and withdraws from the family's communication. This then leads to unresolved conflicts and to emotional distance. If we hope to shed this pattern, we need to work on creating a safe space where everyone feels comfortable expressing their thoughts and their emotions. A fourth pattern. See what I mean about there being enough of these patterns to go around, right? Something for everyone. Anyway, fourth is overgeneralization and blaming. Sometimes families make overgeneralizing statements and blame each other, which then can escalate our conflicts and it will create an overall negative atmosphere. Now, to shed this pattern, we need to focus on specific incidents rather than just making sweeping, overarching generalizations like you always, right? That's a generalization. No, talk about the specific incident. And if we can each take responsibility for our own actions and use more of a collaborative problem solving approach, we can instead help to shift the blame towards finding solutions instead, right? Much better. A fifth pattern in some families is when they struggle with openly expressing their emotions, which, as you can probably puzzle together, only leads to misunderstandings and to pent up frustrations. To shed this pattern would involve encouraging emotional vulnerability and creating a much more supportive environment. We would need to become comfortable expressing our emotions, which in and of itself can be super challenging for some people, right? And showing empathy towards each other, which we have talked about so much in other episodes. But this will help to validate each other's feelings and to foster the healthy emotional communication that we all want. Yet a sixth communication pattern comes when families fail to establish and respect healthy boundaries. It may include intrusion into each other's personal space or an over-involvement in each other's lives or just a general lack of privacy. To shed this pattern, we need to respectfully communicate our boundaries and to set clear expectations of what the boundaries are. And then respecting these boundaries, which of course is the hard part, right? And yet a seventh, but at least final, seventh pattern that we face is interesting because on the surface, it seems good, but in actuality, it can be problematic. Avoiding conflicts in our families seems good in the short term, but long term, it can cause resentment and unresolved issues. To shed this pattern, we need to reframe our conflicts to be instead opportunities for growth. So, just like I promised you, I have given something for everyone. You get a problematic communication pattern, and you get a problematic communication pattern. You all get problematic communication patterns. So, as you are reflecting on what your family can shed at this point of seasonal transition, if you cannot come up with anything else, although if your family is anything like mine, you probably can easily name, like one or two. But if you can't come up with anything else, I'm sure that you can probably spot yourself in one of these patterns at least. So today, as we move into this beautiful fall season, on this autumnal equinox, I'd like you to prepare to let go. We all want to grow as individuals and to grow in our families. But just like everything else in nature, in order for any of us to grow and to bloom, we first need to let go of our old leaves. Can you shed the old behaviors and patterns that no longer serve you? And then we can give ourselves and our families the space to flourish. Now, as an aside, I know that I have a lot of friends in Australia and in that beautiful Southern Hemisphere, which I'm assuming is beautiful because it sure looks beautiful. And I've never been there, but I'd really like to go. But those of you in the Southern Hemisphere, happy spring, right? You guys get to be on the other side of this. And you can certainly use this, our autumnal equinox, as a time for your change and your growth. But don't forget, I do have an episode, the spring equinox, which you might find beneficial too. Of course, we would find it beneficial. All my episodes, I love to think, are beneficial to all of us, but I will also repost that episode for those in the Southern Hemisphere specifically. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already listened, though, to parts 1 and 2, please do go back and use it as an opportunity for this transitional point in nature for us to reflect. If you enjoy the show, if you've taken something helpful from this episode or from another, please take a quick minute and share it on socials or with your friends who you might also think would enjoy it. And if you don't already, please do follow the show so that you don't miss out on any new content. Follow me or reach out to me on socials, on Instagram and TikTok at Reframing Me. And on Facebook, it's Reframing Me, and join the Facebook group, Reframing Me, the podcast community, to connect with other women who are also raising teens and rediscovering themselves. Until next time, be well, communicate, and give yourself the space to grow.